Ever since these things became completely integral in our daily lives, I watch far fewer movies than I used to back in the day. I know part of it is because I'm older and I don't have as much free time as I used to, but I also know that it's because now that I can look up any movie anywhere anytime I want to, I start seeing what other people say about movies, and I guess I kind of get cold feet and just don't take the plunge. I miss the days of picking up movies based solely on cool box art and an enticing blurb on the back. Nothing makes me happier than being pleasantly surprised by something that I know little to nothing about. So, with that in mind, here's a movie I know little to nothing about: Black Death. Let's read the back of the box. The year is 1348. Europe has fallen under the shadow of the Black Death. As the plague decimates all in its path, fear and superstition are rife. Ooh. There are rumors of a village hidden in the marshland that the plague cannot reach. There's talk of a necromancer, alright, who leads the village and is able to bring the dead back to life. Nice. Ulrich, Sean Bean, is a fearsome knight charged by the church to investigate these rumors. Joined by a young monk and a small consort of soldiers, the journey ahead will lead them into the heart of darkness where faith is challenged and put to the ultimate test. Alright, sounds pretty good. It has an interesting premise and the magnet label, which tells me that it's likely something that's gonna be unique and unexpected. Now, I'm a big fan of the Magnet imprint. Some of my favorite movies are put out by them. You've got Bronson, Time Crimes, Big Man, Japan, Let the Right One In, just to name a few. I know it doesn't guarantee a good movie, because after all, Sushi Girl was a big letdown to me, but they can't all be zingers, right? This one stars Sean Bean as a medieval fantasy knight. Interestingly, a role he's never tackled before, so it'll be really interesting to see how he approaches the part. All kidding aside, I like Sean Bean. Eddie Redmayne is in it too. I've never seen him in anything that I can recall, but he has won an Oscar for whatever that's worth anymore these days. And as for the rest of the cast and the director, none of the names really jumped out at me, so I don't know if I've seen anybody else in anything. I'm going into this one pretty much blind. If I've ever seen the trailer, I've forgotten it. And to be honest, I pretty much avoid watching trailers these days anyway. Man, I don't know who these people are who are cutting trailers now, but they always seem to show way too much, spoil a ton of crap, and yeah, I just avoid it. The art of cutting a trailer is truly a lost one. So, my predictions and prejudgments are as follows. Sean Bean's gonna die, even though I don't want him to. His track record in medieval fantasy roles is pretty hard against him, and this movie is literally called Black Death. But, hey, fingers crossed, big guy. I think the only movies I've seen him in where he actually survives are the Silent Hill movies. I'm going to go ahead and say that all the soldiers die, and maybe Eddie Redmayne survives. It's Magnet, so there's likely a twist in there somewhere. Something tells me that this necromancer spoken of is not the real bad guy. And finally, I think I'm going to dig it. Magnet's got a pretty good track record with me, so I'm predicting good things for this one. I don't think I'm going to be too surprised by hating this movie. I think it's going to be a good one. I think I'm going to like it. So, without further ado, let's jump on into Black Death. Black Death. Let's jump into the review. What did I think about it? First, I'm going to do the spoiler-free review of it. Black Death is a good movie. I like it. I recommend it, but it's not for everyone. It is entertaining, but I won't lie, it's a downer. It's a grim story set in a grim world with grim characters. Also, don't go into this one thinking it's an action movie just because the cover features Sean Bean holding a sword, because it's definitely not an action movie. In fact, there's only like one real fight in the movie, And it's not the greatest, thanks to that old cinematic villain shaky cam, but action set pieces are not this movie's focus. This movie is all about its characters and how they deal with the situations they find themselves in. So it's also about kind of the psychological and spiritual impact on them from the things that happen to them. The performances are good all around. There aren't any weak links. Everyone does a really good job. And it's also got some really interesting ideas on faith, fanaticism, and the sometimes hidden cost of revenge. Watch it if you're into low or dark fantasy, kind of like the like old school Warhammer fantasy, that kind of vibe, but without all the wizards and monsters. So if you don't want anything spoiled, go ahead and check the movie out. I recommend it. It definitely is not what I was expecting, which is good. But we're heading into spoiler territory from here on out. So let's get into my predictions and sort of my thoughts on the specific things that happen in this movie. This is one of those stories where I found myself kind of seeing things from both sides. I'm not 100% for or against either the church soldiers or the villagers. Both have their points and both also have their massive faults. There's no real 100% good guy or bad guy in this movie. So one of my predictions was that the necromancer was not going to be the real villain, and that kind of panned out a little bit. The necromancer character was played by the lovely Carice Van Houten. I wound up recognizing a few of the people in this movie because some of them come from Game of Thrones. She played the Red Lady, or the Lady in Red, whatever. The night is dark and full of terrors, that whole thing. She definitely has her reasons for doing what she does in this movie, messing with the soldiers, taking her revenge on them. So in that sense, she's kind of justified, even though I still don't agree 100% with her methods and means and whatnot. I think if the movie focused solely on her, then we would definitely see her as the good guy. But since we spend the movie getting to know Osmond, Ulrich, and the others, we know that they're not evil people and maybe don't deserve what they get, especially Osmond. In the really real world, there's good and bad people on either side of the conflict. It's never as black and white as sometimes, the movies or fiction can portray, or propaganda would have us believe. Fanaticism comes in many different flavors too. We saw the Christians try to burn a woman as a witch before Ulrich does the only merciful thing he thinks he can do for her. He takes her away and, I'm assuming, slits her throat. And at first, Osmond is, oh, why'd you do that? And I had a feeling he wasn't just a piece of garbage on that. So yeah, he tells him that if he'd have just let her go, they would have caught her and tortured her again. So the only thing he knew to do for her was to just kill her quick. Pretty screwed up. But that's this world, That's the world of Black Plague era Europe, I guess. I also found it kind of interesting, the sort of vicious cycle that the movie shows, and how actions can have quite unintended consequences, right? So by killing Langeva's husband, presumably for heresy or what have you, the church actually wound up creating this monster in Langeva, because now she was basically kind of hunting or taking revenge on Christians. So the church, in killing her husband, wound up getting more Christians killed. And then it happens again because, Langeva kind of becomes the thing that she hates. It's like that saying, don't stare too long into the abyss because the abyss stares back into you. Or what's the one about be careful when fighting monsters that you don't become a monster yourself, right? So Langeva winds up becoming the head of her own religion. Like, she hates Christianity and the sort of blind devotion and fanaticism that is a symptom of it. But she winds up doing the same thing in the village. She, tells the people that her, the things that she does with herbs and whatnot, the healing and the curing, like it's all magic, and she winds up creating basically a cult out of these people, and which is no different, you could say, than the church. And then what she does to Osmond is basically the same thing that the church did to her. She tortures Osmond and fractures his mind, takes away the one thing that he truly, really cared about, or one of the things that she tricks him into killing his lover, his fiance, whatever. And then what happens to him is the same thing. He becomes the same thing that she was. So through her actions, she winds up creating a monster that hurts other women, right? So because he goes and he starts hunting down anybody, he starts seeing her everywhere in all of these women, and so by her actions, she winds up getting a bunch of women tortured and killed. So it's this horrible, vicious cycle, and I thought that was, it was really interesting. It was a pretty downer ending. With Magnet, I said there was going to be a twist, I think, is what I said. Magnet doesn't necessarily do twists, not like the M. Night Shyamalan twist thing, but their movies are always they always have this sort of, it's not what you think it's going to be element to them. And that's definitely this movie too. So I thought the whole thing was really interesting. It definitely wasn't what I was expecting. My predictions, the Necromancer wasn't like a black and white evil villain. She was the antagonist, I guess you could say. But like I said, you can see her side of the story. It's just that, just like with what happened with her actions had unintended consequences, and she wound up doing a lot more harm than, and it's not even that it came back on her. She wound up getting other innocent people killed, just like the church did. So I thought that was interesting. Sean Bean dies. Duh. If you didn't think Sean Bean was gonna die in this movie, we all knew. Kind of a weird death though, but where he winds up spreading the plague. But in his eyes, these people were the villains. They were a heretical cult, and this was God's vengeance upon them. And most of the soldiers died. Had a feeling. And Osmond did survive, but not the Osmond that started the movie. He definitely wasn't a good guy at the end of the movie. It wasn't, things just didn't work out for the guy, and that sucks. So there you have it. Black Death. Really cool little movie. I dig it. What did you think about it? Is there something I missed? Did I get something wrong? Maybe I misinterpreted something and you have a different way of looking at things. Let me know in the comments below. And until next time, I will see you fine folks later. Adios.